Ayubowan. On behalf of Vishwaniketan International Peace Center, I would like to welcome you all to the 7th episode of A String of Pearls, a series of intergenerational dialogues. First, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Ms. Sharon Salzberg, a world-renowned meditation teacher. Vishwaniketan has organized this series, A String of Pearls, with the intention of felicitating Dr. A.T. Aryaratne on his 90th birthday. Dr. Aryaratne founded the Sarvodaya movement in 1958 based on the teachings of the Buddha and the Gandhian philosophy. Dr. Ari founded Vishwaniketan in 1999 to promote inner and outer peace. We are holding this dialogue on the Binara full moon day, a very special day for us Buddhists. It was on a Binara full moon day, approximately 2,564 years ago, the Buddha established the Bhikkhuni Sangha, the Bhikkhuni order. When the Buddha was residing at Kutagara in Vaishali, Mahaprajapati Gautami requested permission from the Buddha for women to enter the order. On this special day, we would like to remember with much respect and gratitude the internationally acclaimed Buddhist monastic and scholar, late Venerable Bhikkhuni Dr. Kusuma, who passed away on the 29th of August 2021 at the age of 92 years. Bhikkhuni Kusuma played a pivotal role in re-establishing the Bhikkhuni order in Sri Lanka. Bhikkhuni was a great friend of Sarvodaya and Vishwaniketan. I would like to share some reminiscences of late Bhikkhuni's offerings at the Metta Convention 2014, where she moderated the session on Metta-centered social engagement.
How can we get metta into daily living? That's what it means. Social engagement would mean that each and every one of us are responsible. And we have to carry this message of metta. The most difficult thing would be not so much practicing metta as how to overcome anger and resentment. Once you have no more anger, metta comes very easy. The idea is, how can you forgive the world, even though we live in the world and our sensory system whole day is awake to the world outside. So we have to adjust every moment mindfulness and wisdom, because every moment is a challenge. Either we hear something or see something or smell or through our six sense doors. The outside world comes in, and we have to be careful how we react to the outside. And for this, we have to have more than loving kindness, really, mindfulness and wisdom, and come to terms with our own mind and forgive the world. After that, we can give metta. In daily living, the problem is with anger, resentment. So if we can see our own mind with vipassana, that is, seeing the impermanence of thought, anger itself, metta itself, seeing the non-self nature, how they come and go, and see the pain and suffering of anger now and in the future as karmic problem, then we have the wisdom of vipassana to help us to overcome our own defilement. Once we forgive the world, then metta is very easy, because once we see the impermanence, then we already have to let go anger and resentment. Once we see the conditioned nature of the arising of anger, then also we know the non-self nature. Once we see the pain and suffering for us and for others, then also we make an effort to give up. So what I want to propose is that metta must be backed up with vipassana. Then only it will be possible to apply it in daily living.
Now, I would like to introduce our distinguished speaker, Ms. Sharon Salzberg. Ms. Sharon Salzberg is a meditation pioneer and a world-renowned teacher and New York Times best-selling author. As one of the pioneers to bring meditation and mindfulness into the mainstream American culture over 45 years ago, her relatable, demystifying approach has inspired generations of meditation teachers and wellness influencers. Ms. Sharon is the co-founder of the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, and the author of 11 books, including the New York Times bestseller, Real Happiness, her seminal work, Loving Kindness, and her newest book, Real Change, Mindfulness to Heal Ourselves and the World. Ms. Sharon's secular modern approach to Buddhist teachings is sought after at schools, conferences, and retreat centers worldwide. Her podcast, The Metta Hour, has amassed over 3 million downloads and features interviews with the top leaders and thinkers of the mindfulness movement and beyond. Now I would like to introduce Tiara and Sanara. Both Tiara and Sanara have taken an active role in Vishwaniketan's mini spiritual retreats for children. They have also forged their own identity in areas that they are immensely passionate about. With this introduction, I would like to invite Tiara to commence the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Charika, for that lovely introduction. We're so grateful to have our speaker, Ms. Sharon Salzberg, here with us today. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing very well. I'm so happy to be with you all. I'm really honored, actually.
That's lovely to hear. So today's episode would be dedicated to Bhikkhuni Kusuma. And before we move on to the dialogue, I would like to invite Dr. Ari to share a few words about Bhikkhuni with us.
Kusuma very suddenly departed from this world and from us just a few days ago on the 29th of August. I have known her for at least 62 years. When she was, before she became a Buddhist bhikkhuni, she was married to Mr. Ashoka Devendra, who was my mathematics teacher at Mahindra College. Their daughter, the eldest daughter, was my secretary for several years in 1980s. 2 children died, the second and third, and the other 4 children are there, 2 living in Sri Lanka, 2 others in other countries. I think after maybe over 1,000 years, Bhikkhuni Sasana was re-established in Sri Lanka. And if anybody contributed for that most, that was Bhikkhu Kusuma. Kusuma, I think from 1950 onwards, she was practicing meditation, and at one stage, she decided that she should do a research into Dasasil Matas. And then while doing that, she found that Bhikkhuni Sasana should be re-established in Sri Lanka. There was a lot of opposition, but there were a few monks and lay leaders who helped us. So, Venerable Vipulasarya managed to organize the first Upasampada ceremony for Dasasil Matas, and in Saranath, where Buddha preached his first sermon, Dhammacakka Pavattana Sutra. So she became a Dasasil Mata at Kalaniya temple before that. And she did a lot of research on how from Sri Lanka, Buddhism went to China, Japan, Taiwan, Korea, and studied all the books on Bhikkhuni Vinaya in those countries, translated them and wrote a book, Bhikkhuni Vinaya, which is a standard text even today for Bhikkhunis. So herself became a Bhikkhuni, and then for 2 years lived in Sarnath. After that she came back. Now there are over 300 Bhikkhuni aramas in Sri Lanka, and there are several centers where Bhikkhunis are trained, and then every year there is Upasampada ceremony for Dasasil Matas conducted at Damul Rajamaha Vihare, and maybe over 2,500 Bhikkhunis who have attained high ordination are there in Sri Lanka today in over 350 places. So for rejuvenation, for resuscitation, for re-establishing the Bhikkhuni Sasana in Sri Lanka, Bhikkhuni Kusuma should get the credit. And Bhikkhuni Kusuma, therefore, like in the times of the Buddha or during the Anuradhapura period, now we have Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasak, Upasika, all the 4 sectors that Buddha Sasana always had. So I'm very happy that in her name you are conducting this program. So I like to thank all of you for organizing this and also inviting me to participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. Before we would like to now dive into questions for today's dialogue. So the first question is, through the years of your journey as a teacher of meditation and the author of many books, how would you describe the concepts of giving and letting go?
Well, I tend to describe them in terms of release or relinquishing. I think what we don't necessarily realize, because we're not that mindful necessarily, is how tightly we're holding on. And it's as though we're holding something in a very tight, clenched fist, and we don't feel that until we become more aware. When we become more aware and we feel that, it's so limiting, it's so painful that there's just this natural movement toward release, toward offering, toward letting go. Sometimes people don't like the term letting go because they think it implies to them a kind of denouncing, like I'm going to throw this away, or this mental habit, or this part of myself, of my character. I'm gonna let it go, which means destroy it. But it's really not like that at all. If our fist is very tight and we open, then what we experience is a kind of natural peace.
Thank you so much for that beautiful response, Ms. Sharon. Moving on to the second question. In the modern world, people more often lean towards acquiring and clinging rather than renouncing and letting go. In what ways does this affect one's happiness and well-being?
Well, my understanding of at least some element of the Buddhist teaching was that everybody really does want to be happy, not in a superficial sense, just like happy-go-lucky or, totally carefree, but deeply happy with a sense of belonging, a sense of finding a home somewhere in this body, in this mind, with one another on this earth. And the problem is ignorance, that we often don't have a real understanding of where genuine happiness is to be found. And so we're also taught many myths, and there's a lot of deception, often in different cultural forms, about where happiness is to be found, about how alone we are, about where strength is. And so we do see that there's quite a bit of emphasis in certain arenas on acquiring, holding on, clinging, never let it go, get more and more and more, and more experience, more money, more whatever. And it's such a myth. And again, it's only when we can be more mindful of the actual effect, and we can ask ourselves some sincere questions like, where is strength? Is it actually in maybe being vengeful the way I've been taught? Or is that weak instead of being strong? And if I accumulate yet more, am I any happier? Let's take a look. And sometimes the opposite is true in terms of our conditioning. Like, if you're compassionate, if you're generous, if you're kind, then you're sort of foolish, and people will just take advantage of you and things like that. And we have to look at that. Like, what is it like within me when I have that impulse to give? And it's through that kind of awareness that we see, oh, maybe genuine happiness and well-being can be happening, can be achieved, but not maybe in the ways I was taught.
Yes, I agree, Miss. Like, I think a lot of us in today's modern world are so focused in acquiring materialistic stuff around us. We often tend to forget the true art of letting go and the happiness that comes about with it. And that's something that I think we as the new generation has to identify from a very young age and try to practice the true art of letting go and find that wholesome happiness. Moving on to the next question we have. According to reports, it's said that globally 97 million people were living in poverty in the past year. And the impact of COVID-19 on poverty has been looming over to this day and is continuing to grow bigger. What are the ways in which we can bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, by using virtuous qualities like generosity and letting go?
Well, here I would like to echo the Bhikkhuni and adding wisdom to that. I think if we make a practice of generosity, if we make a practice of metta, we will begin to see ourselves in one another in a very powerful way. Like, I have many meditation students, say in the States, who will say, I deepened my practice of metta, of loving kindness, and then I was taking a walk, and somebody came up to me and asked me for some money, asked me for $1, like a person from the streets. And I gave them $1 because that's my habit. That's just my practice. But this was the first time I ever looked that person in the eye and realized that was a human being. And so I think that those virtuous qualities will lend itself to that. But what we may not do is take the next step, which would be based on wisdom and looking for causes and conditions and having kind of critical thinking, which might be asking, well, what's the housing policy in my city so that so many people are living on the street? And it's really the combination of that kind of wisdom and thinking in a systems way and looking at causes and conditions, plus the heart space of the metta and the caring, that I think will be the most impactful.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Miss. And I truly believe that regardless of our race, religion, ethnicity, social status, at the end of the day, we are all human beings living on one planet. And we should see each other as human beings, as living beings, as brothers and sisters. And I feel like in a way that too brings us so much happiness. With that, I would like to move on to the fourth question. The Sri Lankan culture is very rich in the wholesome act of generosity. From a very young age, we've been nurtured in an environment where people give selflessly and gain an abundance of happiness by doing so. How would you link the act of giving with merit making or accumulating merit in a Buddhist perspective?
Well, I think that's a very blessed kind of conditioning in so many ways compared to, I sometimes joke, although it's true, there's a saying in the West, it's a dog eat dog world, which means don't help anybody else because they're not going to help you, and you're on your own, and doesn't matter who you have to hurt on your way to the top, just get there. And it's such a terrible kind of conditioning to have, even from a very young age. And so the opposite of it is very striking to me. And, because I went to India to learn meditation and Buddhism when I was very young. I was 18, not as young as you are, but still I was very young. And, and so it's been those were very important years for me that I spent in the East. And so it helped mold my worldview and my thinking very much. And I think one of the striking things for me around the idea of accumulating merit is that there's power in goodness, good actions, good-heartedness, power that may transcend time and space as we know it even. To be generous, to be caring, to be kind, to be restrained. Like maybe it's awfully easy to tell a lie, but we don't. We speak the truth. And to practice meditation or introspection, to study, to learn, to question, all these things are powerful. And that was a very different kind of upbringing than what I had, which was really much more like it's a dog eat dog world. And don't care about anybody else. That's what really gullible people do. And so I love that aspect of the idea of accumulating merit. It's not really accumulating because we dedicate it, we offer it, we generate that energy, that positive energy through the good action, and then we share it, we offer it to others.
I agree with you, Doctor. And I feel like in the East, from a very young age, we're generally taught within our households to be more giving. And that's something that is important. But unfortunately, as times have progressed, we see that these virtues are often lost within our households. So it's important to rejuvenate it and start from a very young age. So I think that's a message we should give to all young people out there. Moving on to the fifth question we have today. One unfortunate thing that I have observed about generosity, that it's often used as a camouflage today. What outwardly looks like giving often springs from hidden motives such as publicity or popularity. For some, giving is an act of patronizing superiority. For others, it is an indirect wish for more luxury and accumulating merit. I would like to know what it truly feels like when noble giving and letting go is merged in one act.
Well, I'll start with accumulating merit, that concept of accumulating, because I was taught in very beautiful ways, sometimes ceremonial ways, that upon the completion of a meritorious act, generosity or study or something like that, to make that kind of offering, to bring to mind those who've helped me, and to dedicate the merit of that action, the positive energy of that action to them as a kind of gratitude. And then those who are suffering, those who are struggling in some way, because especially if the meritorious act was meditation practice, which can seem so inner and a little bit removed from the world, it's a reminder that what we do in meditation could never be for ourselves alone only. You know, it really reminds us of that when we dedicate the merit of that action, and then all beings everywhere, no one left out. And so that's like a practice in and of itself. And I appreciate that very much, that was the context in which I was taught about merit. And one of the great gifts, I think, of the Buddhist teaching, not only to me as a human being trying to live a good life, but to humanity, is really the power of intention. You know, that we think an act is maybe very generous, you know, like I'm offering you this glass of water. But if I don't know what's happening in my heart that is sparking that action, it could be anything. You know, that very same act of offering you this glass of water, maybe it's coming from a place of generosity and care, and I want you to have it. Or maybe I see you have a better looking glass than I have, and I think, oh, great, you know, I'll give you this one, and maybe you'll give me that one. So it's really a kind of business exchange in my mind, in my heart. Or maybe I don't like you, and I detect this very odd taste in the water, and I think, here, have a glass of water. And you know, it's the same smile and the same gesture, but it's coming from a totally different place inside. So it's actually a different act, but it doesn't appear different on the surface at all. And so in the West, I think there's also a little bit of a contention around the idea of intention. You know, people quote Dante, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, or people might say, what do you mean you had a good intention? You were so awful, you know? But it was really only in the Buddhist teaching that I found something about the power of intention that clarified so much for me. So is it really generosity, or is it an exchange? Is it really generosity, or is it something else? Martyrdom. I don't deserve to have anything, therefore I will give it away. So many possibilities about that intention, and we can learn so much if we practice mindfulness and see our intention. Also, these days in the States, there's a kind of debate because of racial tensions and things that are happening in society. They've always been happening, but they're revealed much more in society. And people say, well, intention is not good enough. You have to look at the impact of what you said. And so I think that figures in as well, even in the Buddhist context, where the intention reveals so much. And then there's the skillfulness of how we act. You know, like if I want to give you the glass of water, I don't throw it at you. You know, I hand it to you gently, and I look at the context and things like that. So I think both can be true, that we really need to look at our intention and understand that it makes a difference. And we can also look at the skillfulness with which we act.
Thank you, Doctor, for that amazing response. I couldn't have asked for a better one. Throughout the years, we've been conducting children's programs every month with Vishwanikethan International Peace Center. And a couple of years back, we did one where we had holiday camps, where in one we went to the Leela Jayasekara Children's Home of Sarvodaya, as well as the Elders Home run by Sarvodaya. And we spent the entire day interacting with the elders of the home as well as the children. And we connected with them on such a deep level. And that brought us, to me, the purest form of happiness, knowing that giving selflessly results in so many more smiles. And you see the smiles on their faces, and that makes you smile yourself. And that feeling of genuine happiness can be brought out by giving wholeheartedly and selflessly. So I would like to share a video of a couple of these programs we have done through the Peace Center. I hope you enjoyed that video, Miss. With that, I would like to move on to the final question for today. People often think that giving is materialistic, that it only includes the act of sharing something tangible. Growing up in the presence of Dr. Ari, I learned that the act of giving is sharing love, compassion, wisdom, knowledge, and loving kindness. How do we apply these in our acts of giving and share it with the rest of the world as well?
Well, I mean, I could not agree more that there's a kind of generosity of the spirit, which is an important and powerful form of generosity. Maybe we thank somebody instead of taking them for granted, or we express appreciation, or we listen to somebody, even if they're not the most interesting person maybe we've ever met in our lives. We actually open our attention and we listen. We're very fully present. And I think all of these are based on a deepening understanding of the truth of interconnection, that our lives really have something to do with one another. And that's reality. You know, that's not like a sentimental idea we're imposing on reality. That is reality. And that the positive energy, or the merit, you could say, of actually extending this generosity begins to come more and more naturally, because it's how we see the world. Like, if I go into an organization or a company to teach meditation, my favorite question actually to ask people is, how many other people need to be doing their job well for you to be able to do your job well? And often it's very illuminating for people, like, oh, I'm counting on a lot of people. And just the other day, I asked this group that, and it wasn't working. They weren't very into it. So then I said, well, how many of you are working outside of the home? And are you counting on some form of transportation? Like, you want that engineer, you know, to be good at their job. And what if you're working inside the home? I mean, look at our total dependence on technology. And have you eaten today if you're not growing your own food? Think about all the many lives, you know, even if it's not an animal product, somebody planted a seed in some soil and someone harvested a crop. And, you know, we find this truth of interconnection everywhere. And I think the natural way to respond to it, the deeper our understanding, is through all those qualities like compassion and appreciation and generosity of the heart.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Ms. Sharon, for that lovely, lovely discussion today.
I'm not a doctor, but I've enjoyed being referred to as one.
Sorry.
You know, I thought that was very nice of you.
Thank you so much for today's very engaging discussion. I think we learned so much, and the message is loud and clear for everyone out there as well. And before we conclude today's session, we would like to invite you to take us through a guided meditation.
Yes, I'd be very happy to. I think I'd like to go back to just the kind of foundational exercise in mindfulness that helps us just become aware of everything that we're feeling and thinking, and also gives us a kind of centeredness or stability with something like the sensations of the breath. And if you could just sit comfortably, close your eyes or not, however you feel most at ease. We can start by listening to sound, which is maybe the sound of my voice, maybe other sounds. And unless you are responsible for responding to the sound, see if it can just wash through you, allowing it to come and go. And bring your attention to the feeling of your body sitting, whatever sensations you discover. Feel the earth supporting you. Feel space touching you. Usually we think about touching space. We think about picking up a finger and poking it in the air, but space is already touching us. It's always touching us. We just need to receive it. Bring your attention to your hands and see if you can move from the more conceptual level, like, oh, fingers, to the world of direct sensation. Picking up pulsing, throbbing, heat, cold, whatever it might be. You don't have to name these things, but feel them. And on that same level, bring your attention to the feeling of the breath, the actual sensations of the breath, the normal, natural breath. You don't have to try to make it deeper or different. Find the spot where it's clearest for you or strongest for you. Maybe that's the nostrils or the chest or the abdomen. Find that spot, bring your attention there, and just rest. See if you can feel one breath. Without concern for what's already gone by, without leaning forward for even the very next one, just this one. And if your attention wanders, you end up lost in thought, spun out in a fantasy, or you fall asleep, truly don't worry about it. We say the most important moments is the next moment, after you've been gone, after you've been lost, where we have the chance to be really different, not to judge ourselves or call ourselves a failure, but gently let go. Bring your attention back to the feeling of the breath. We let go and we begin again, and we let go and we begin again. Say the healing is in the return, not in never having wandered to begin with. So we forgive ourselves, we let go, and we start over. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes or lift your gaze, and we'll end the meditation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sharon. That was very peaceful, and we really enjoyed having you here with us today, despite your busy schedule. And now I would like to invite Dr. Charika to conclude today's dialogue.
Thank you, Tiara. Thank you, Ms. Sharon, for accepting our humble invitation. I'm deeply touched by your, kind gesture, honoring our invitation and finding the time. And with so much love and affection, you accepted this invitation, especially to honor Dr. Ari for his lifetime of service. And I think for me also personally, I got to know you and your teachings through this book. loving
Oh, yeah.
kindness, the revolutionary art of happiness. And this really was kind of the Bible. When I was in the university, I faced a sort of quite a challenging time when students resorted to violence. And this was like, for me, like the Bible, the guide to keep myself calm and have a lot of love and compassion instead of generating any anger or any sort of ill will towards my students. So I think you today also you touched on this beautiful power of love, goodness of heart, and you said that power in goodness and good-heartedness is an energy that travels beyond time and space. I think that's why we are here, thousands of miles away between Sri Lanka and the US, but still, you know, we can connect because we share something common, goodness of our heart and the loving kindness we have towards everybody, and we are connected through our hearts and share this. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and time with us, and we truly value and appreciate your kindness. And thank you so much, Dr. Ari, for sharing those thoughts about the most venerable late Bhikkhuni Kusuma, and also Tiara and Sanara for beautifully moderating the session as always. And also I would like to thank Madhushan and Kala and also Mrs. Gunawardana and Sanji for all their help and support in making this program a success. May all of you be well, happy, and peaceful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, really.